Three, two, one, and welcome back to Chasing the Race in episode 37. And we're joined by Mr James Whitham down at, is it the Huddersfield International Airport?
Oh yeah, we're international now. We realised that we had once taken a flight. Somebody had flown in from France in a small aircraft, so we figured we were international at that point. So we have our Terminal 2. We're talking about caravans here. Terminal 1 blew away in a big storm. So the next caravan we got is obviously Terminal 2. It's all sign written. We've got, we've got departures, arrivals, we've got baggage collection on the same door.
Well, I love the security guy and the guy on the way in, high vis, woolly hat, with a big walking stick going, "Hello, son, can we help?"
That's somebody who keeps the horse up here, actually. He used to build tractors for a living, that bloke.
Anyway, it must have been a mega place to grow up around here. You know, like it's like a bloke's dreaming at motorbikes, planes, plenty of land to do what you want.
Yeah, we were reasonably deprived in a lot of ways, but to be honest, being brought up with space is something that a lot of people don't. In fact, people are used to not having space now. Mm-hmm. You know, and people are tripping over each other. Your garden, backs onto somebody else's garden. You make a bit of a noise and a bit of a smell, and they don't like it, and they have a fire, and your washing smells, and all that kind of thing. And we didn't get any of that up here. We could pretty much do, within reason, what we wanted.
Mm-hmm. And have you been into flying from a young age? Obviously, I know I've been at a chat show before when you've talked about the story with Shuey picking up that plane years and years ago. When did you first start flying?
My dad moved in here. My dad bought this place in the early 70s purely because he'd learnt to fly in the 60s and got right into it. His business was doing all right, bought the airfield. We moved in up here. And so I've been around flying a long, long time. The problem for me with the flying early on was that I was into motorbikes really heavily.
Was your dad ever into bikes?
Yeah, my dad was a big old motorbiker. Yeah. He took me to see the race meets, went to Mallory Park, Alton Park, went to stuff like Transatlantic, and first went to his first TT in 78 for Halewood's return. And from that, even before that, I was into bikes. We had field bikes up here, and mates of mine had buy old Bantams and old C90s and stuff, and because their parents didn't agree with them having it, or they didn't have any room to keep them because they lived in a council house, they'd leave them up here. So on a weekend, you get a troop of kids who may or may not have been my friend. Some lads I didn't even get on with that well, but they'd get the bike up here because they didn't have anywhere else, and they'd come up and ride it on a weekend. So
you were the local kingpin in the school,
in the
then,
bikey type thing. Yeah,
That's
I was.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I really was. Yeah.
Okay, let's go have a chat with Whitham there. He's our mate. He's always our mate.
A gang of lads arrived, and they'd knock on the door. My mum answered the door. All right, lads, how you doing? Yeah, is James in? Yeah, he is, but he's on doing something with his dad on the farm. But his motorbike's broken down. You don't have a motorbike at the minute. It's not running. Oh, all right, then we'll see you then. Off they went.
So obviously we'll come on to speaking about your racing career and stuff, and like stuff in the past. But what are you up to mainly these days? Obviously, you've got the commentating and the track days things. Like, how do you fill your time?
Time. This man doesn't have time. He's always busy.
No, this is a really good time of year for me to have time, and make sure I do have a little bit of time this time of year for mountain biking, bit of trials riding, and stuff I want to do. But the work thing is mainly summer for me. I've got a couple of 3 properties I rent out. I try and get a bit more time into them in winter because they naturally get neglected because I'm away a lot in summer. So I try and keep up to them in winter. Anything needs doing to the airfield, we'll try and get that done this time of year. I try and do a little bit of restoration work in my workshops because I love doing it, and I don't get that much chance in summer. So it's more my stuff in winter than it is in summer for me.
Mm-hmm. And how's the sort of track and training days going? Have you got plenty of dates booked in for next year and stuff?
Yeah, 22 again in 2020. Usual places for us, so we're running at Croft, Mallory and Anglesey. And they're going well. I've just got the new GSXR thousands through, and they'll be a prep, and we're ready to go really.
And just for the track day people that are listening, do you want to just sort of briefly explain what you provide us for on the track days?
Yeah, it's call it what you want. It's really a low numbers track day. I realised when I was running a company called Speed Freak with a guy called Paul Shoesmith, we were a pretty standard stack 'em and rack 'em track day. If we got 150 people booked on at Cadwell, we would accept 150 people at Cadwell, which meant through your 3 groups, you're having 50 and 60 on track sometimes, which is brilliant, and there's firms doing a really good job of that. But we realised most of the hassle we got on the day and most of the hassle people had between each other on the day was purely because there were a lot of people there. So you'd go out and within a lap there'd be a red flag because somebody had gone onto the grass at all bends and tipped off, and then there'd be another red flag because somebody dropped some oil, and then there'd be... and
Is that the legal limit? No, I'm just
whatever
thinking,
the legal limit was, yeah, each track has its own limit.
Right, so I'm thinking, obviously, let's talk about Croft. So how many people can you have on at Croft?
I don't know, because I actually don't know at Croft now. I don't know what the limits are anyway, but I know it's a lot.
Right, it's a lot.
For a competitive race day, say if there's different limits, so, and I don't know who sets these, it may even be the ACU, but say, for example, at Cadwell, I think the limit to start a race is 32 on the grid.
That's what I mean. We're definitely used to those numbers, and you think that's a busy track.
But I think it's... What they do is it's 32 for a race, say for example Cadwell.
Yeah.
And it was 36 or 38 in practice. So if it wasn't a race you could put more on, and a track day was even more. So I think you could get... I think Cadwell's limit, and this is all kind of made up, but I think it's somewhere near.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in touch with that now, because I don't have to be, because we run low numbers. I think you're allowed on a track day to put about 50 people, and more at some places.
Mm-hmm. Bloody hell, it'd be like travelling up the M6 at rush hour.
It's busy.
And then on top of that, you've got all the top riders as sort of coaches, and so everyone on the track day is entitled to sort of tuition.
Yeah, so I'll never put more than 20 on track. So our maximum number to have on the day is 60, split into 3 groups, and each session will have 2 groups of 10 maximum. Typically, say for example, Chrissy, you came and did some instructing for us. Or you, Dom.
Oh, there's a hint.
Right?
No, he knows what he's doing.
You would be allocated, depending how the numbers worked out, between 7 and 10 maximum people, and you'd be with them all day. So you'd have 20 minutes on track with them, and then you'd have probably a 10-minute rest, cup of tea that we provide, bottle of water, get your bikes on the tyre warmers, and then probably a 20-minute debrief, looking at a map, talking about braking, talking about tyres, talking about whatever you want. But you're with those riders all day. So it's kind of it's as intense as you want to make it. If you don't want to sit through the debriefings, perfect. We don't care.
It's sort of a little bit more expensive, but you're getting a lot more sort of bang for your buck.
Yeah, that's it. You're getting less numbers on track, which attracts some people because they are nervous of going on track with 60 other people. Mm-hmm. And as well as that, you get a lot more instruction. And we rarely get, I'm not speaking too soon, obviously, but we rarely get big accidents. We get the odd person go on grass, we get the odd person slide off, but we do really well with it, purely because we don't stick a lot of people on track.
Mm-hmm. And just on the way over here, we've just come from sort of Doncaster area, and so would that be Huddersfield Town Centre that we've just come through?
Yes.
Yeah. So we passed a shop there, Kawasaki shop. I'm not sure what it was called, but I recognised it. Is that where you did that TV advert when you took the bloke on the back?
Yeah, that'll be a shop called it's called Earnshaw's. It's right next door to a big Wick store. You would pass it on the way into town from here. Mm-hmm. So it's about half a mile from town and about a mile and a half from here. And that is they're my really good mates who run that place.
You wouldn't get away with doing that.
I was just about to say, why don't we do that sort of thing now? The industry's becoming always PC. It's terrible, man.
Can't do it, can you?
It's like we were discussing. I'm not sure if it was on the pod or not, but we're talking about like Fast Bike magazine. And how in the centre page they used to have like a girl there draped over a Honda Fireblade in her knickers. The only reason I bought that magazine was because to get the... I'm a total pervert, young and that. Totally. Hey, the heart beats like the rest of us males. But you just think, those adverts that you did, they are going to be literally timeless because they won't happen again.
You can't do it again. The problem with that was we were working for a magazine at the time. We came up with a lot of ideas. And this is in the... it was the laddish kind of 90s, it was where you could You were expected to be a dickhead then. You know what I mean? Now everybody has to be a bit more responsible, and we've got to. And I get it. I do get it.
Do you think that's crap? Quick question. Do you think that? No, come on. No, you see, hold on. I keep forgetting. We're speaking to Jamie Whitham here now. Of any listeners who haven't heard of this name, you've been living under a rock and you need to get out underneath it. I'm telling you.
The thing is, I've never wanted to hurt anybody, but I wasn't as bothered about hurting myself back then. And I firmly believe if you want to go out and do something, and you'll get this, you race a TT at really good speed, right? So why would somebody have the right to stop you doing what you want to do when only you are in danger? You chose to do that.
Totally
if you want to be
agree.
a boxer, a flipping MMA fighter, a rock climber, one of these guys who puts a winged suit on, they smash into the hillside on a regular basis, good luck to them. Good luck to them. Because once you can stop somebody doing what doesn't endanger anybody else, only them, then everything stops. What
Life
sense
stops.
does? Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, for me, we did a lot of daft things with the magazine, but it was only us could have got.
That's it. But like, we're just saying how that won't even repeat. So if you could
You're not allowed to do anything now.
That just won't happen again, which is a damn shame. And you just think, what? You've just said the exact same point. Why can't we do things like that? We should do something like that, Chrissy. You know?
Well, I think it's gone. For me, it's where does it stop? Health and safety is a thing you need. We've all got our own health and safety gene, you know, area of your brain where you
survival. It's self-survival, isn't it?
I'm not sure this is a good idea. There's always some kid at back when you're 8 and some mate comes up with a really bad idea of doing something quite dangerous. There's always some kid at back going, I don't like it. My mum's not going to like this. And then you can always talk them into it. And that's the thing. That's what you've got. You've got a little kid going, I don't like this. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And, you know, we need, for me, kids now are almost the way that they don't think anything can be dangerous and they don't accept that anything's their fault. My kid's a good kid. I brought her up best I can.
You were telling us she can fly a plane. There's not many kids who could fly a plane.
She could fly a little bit. And she
That's
could drive when she was 8 or 9, only because we had room. I'm not showing off. We had her in tractors and on motorbikes.
Got your own international airport, you know what I mean?
Correct. But she will still say to me, well, that wasn't my fault. I'm going, no, Ruby, it was exactly your fault. It was exactly your fault. And as a kid, you've got to learn. You've got to have your own, no matter what the government says, or a bloke in Ivy's jacket and an hard hat, you need your own risk assessment thing going on, because if you don't know that climbing up a tree and falling out is going to hurt you, well, you're thick.
Amen to that. Mm-hmm.
You know, you need, and we're breeding it out of kids now. It's like, if you people used to not trip up over small steps in a pavement, and the reason they didn't is because they watched where they were going.
Not only that, you'd feel like a dick if you walked into a bar and went, here, I've fallen over. You'd be like, you bellend, what are you doing?
Now, it's somebody else's fault. Everybody's looking for somebody else to blame. Well, actually, it wasn't my fault. You know,
it's almost like this American attitude of you can put suing and everything in it, and you're thinking, I wish I caught none of that. I would have paid for me racing years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, the biggest mistake my mum did was me, and she should have put a claim in a long time ago.
You're never going to get paid out.
Get a spade.
You know, I think the health and safety thing for me's gone quite a long way. You know, we got. I won't go too far into it, but we are bound by the CA as who's in charge of flying. Obviously, they are safety conscious. There's lots of red tape surrounding it, and quite rightly.
Metal bricks flying through the air.
Correct.
Understandable.
You don't want to, if this thing is going to fall out of the sky, you know, I get it. I do get it. But then and not by them actually, how can I say this without incriminating myself?
Yeah, man, it's only our podcast. Say what you want.
We've got a public toilet up here for anybody who flies in. Basically, we don't get a lot of flights in, but in summer, we might get 2 or 3 people flying in for a cup of tea because they want to, and they want to fly their aeroplane. They want to, and
quick fire question: who's the most famous person you've had land here? Just a quick one.
Queen.
Okay, we're going to come back to this later on. Carry on with your story.
You've had some real famous people in up here.
The Queen,
Because you were visiting
Liz.
local.
Jesus.
Queen, Prince Andrew, Mike Ashley.
Bloody hell.
He comes in.
Prince Andrew didn't have. He didn't land in Epstein's plane, did he?
No, he didn't. He landed in a huge helicopter with his 2 kids. Is it Eugenie and Beatrice?
I've
Maybe
no
they were-
idea. I've just got this fantastic image of Liz going to use your local throne.
Tony Blair landed.
That's
There was
unreal,
a little bit of trouble there. Tony Blair, we had Mick Jagger. Get
Shut
that.
up, man.
Mick Jagger's got
You are
relatives.
literally the
Mick
most-
Jagger has relatives locally. He came in with a big aeroplane.
Right, you are literally the most rock star rider that's ever existed. Anyway, sorry, we've totally interrupted. Right, so
Mike Ashley left his it wasn't his helicopter. Mike Ashley were going to watch Newcastle play Huddersfield in the Premiership 2 years ago. They've been in twice actually when they played.
Who won?
Yeah,
Not a big football.
definitely Newcastle.
I'm not a big
I think.
football
No,
fan.
Newcastle,
Are you a
I
football
think.
fan?
No, I like to see Town doing well, but I think Newcastle kicked his ass that weekend.
Fantastic.
But he left when they'd gone. This helicopter was something special. It was a charter firm helicopter. It wasn't his. I don't think it was his. Anyway, I went up to it and have a look. Door open. Oh yes. So I'm signing it. I'm having a sit in it like a kid going. Anyway, that's probably illegal.
Doesn't matter.
Going back to health and safety, I know
Yeah.
we had a big crack about this before we started recording, and but I just think it's such a good story that our listeners would really enjoy it. Could you just tell us about when you went to pick up your first plane with Shuey?
I had a really good friend at the time who got killed at the Isle of Man 3 years ago, a guy called Paul Shoesmith. The funniest lad you'll ever meet. Little dwarf of a bloke.
My favourite levers he ever had were the Evil Knievel levers.
Yeah, he had a
He's going
tassely Evil Knievel.
down
yeah.
Bray Hill with tassels
Yeah.
flying around the place. Yeah.
Well, I mean, his whole life was like that. He's second-hand car salesman, could talk the flipping 9 legs off a donkey. You couldn't not like him. And you couldn't upset him. Didn't matter how much you took the mick. He was Teflon, bulletproof. You couldn't get to him. I tried. Anyway, we learned to fly together. And we're in his 30s. We weren't kids. And we bought this aeroplane, went down in the car, looked at this aeroplane, revved it up a little bit, didn't know what we were doing. Bought this little 2-seat aeroplane. The check cleared. The week after, the bloke rung us and says, "Can you get it out of the way? It's yours now. The check's cleared." And we'd arranged for it. We were about halfway through our licenses at that time. And we therefore arranged for an older fella who flew from up with us, who had a license, to come down and make it legal.
So you could actually get your plane home.
Yeah. Anyway, the night before we were going, Rodney, this guy called Rodney, let us down. He says, "I've got something on." It wasn't his fault. Just had something on. Can't go. We'll have to go next weekend. We were so disappointed, like kids at Christmas. We went anyway, and we took this other old boy who's never had a pilot's license. But the guy we were buying the airplane off didn't know that this other guy, Barry, who's now dead, so I can't incriminate him. Didn't know Barry didn't have a license, so we got this aeroplane and flew it back. I'd done probably 15 or 16 hours, so I could actually fly the airplane. I wasn't teaching myself as I went. I could fly.
Treating it like one of your super bikes, flat out and lean it back.
But but we didn't have a map, so we went east until we found the A1. This is from Cambridge, and then flew north, followed the A1, and found our way back.
That is brilliant.
And it's great to see you looking so well and healthy. Are you, like, obviously after the whole cancer thing, are you finished all your chemotherapy now? And
Yeah, I had my last treatment. I had about 18 months of treatment leading up to a thing called a stem cell transplant, which is it's all right, just a bit boring. You're inside you have to be in isolation because they hit you with that much chemo that you're very susceptible.
The immune system just
You have
gets
no
up.
immune system.
Bloody
That's the whole
hell.
point. The whole point
All
is
right.
you build a new immune system up, so it kind of flushes you out. That's the idea of any rogue cells. So, the hard bit about the stem cell transplant is that it's an undefined amount of time. You go in, they load you with chemo over a week, then you're in isolation. You're basically in a small room with pressure and temperature and air controlled. Because if somebody walks in there with a cold, you die. You get it and you die. That's because it'll kill you. So you don't have any visitors.
okay, at that exact point, right, the doctor's going, look, son, if someone sneezes, just have your last moments with yourself. That must have been beyond terrifying, because that's out of your control.
Because the alternative that you're facing at that time is worse. Because without it, you're dying.
Yeah.
So,
of course,
so you do anything, you take anything. You take any risk, because the alternative is definite.
Yeah.
And the hard bit to accept mentally is the fact that you may be in there for the quickest anybody's ever done it is 3.5 weeks. Apparently, this is in Leeds. I asked them, what's the record for getting out after a stem cell transplant? She says about 3.5 weeks, about 24 days, maybe. I went, right, that's it then. And she says, but we have some in that, 3 months before you're fit enough, because they check your blood levels every day.
Yeah,
and until you're fit enough, levels of white blood cells and the rest of it, you're not going out. But I did it in just under 4 weeks, so I was kind of all right.
No, dear. See,
all right.
This is we talk a lot on this show about like psychological mindset is so important in this sport. And now, because of racing, because of your competitive nature, how competitive would you say you are as a person? Be honest with yourself.
Quite competitive, but not that one about the competitiveness. That one about.
Oh yeah, no, I'm taking this to a side. I'm just saying, like, when you're racing, your attitude, you get well because you've crashed bikes, you've done this, you've done that, and you just say to yourself, I need to get better. Now, how important do you think in any illness, any injury, anything like that, how important is the mindset? It's got to be 100%.
Oh, massively important. Yeah. But I think you soon learn with racing bikes that you wouldn't be in the job long if you didn't accept and get through the best way you could.
Yeah.
Injury. Bodily injury. And it was pretty much the same. I mean, I put up with it. I put up with the chemo reasonably well. And I was, I think, really lucky in that everybody's different. Of course, you can have the strongest, 18-year-old kid in the world with lymphoma, and it floors him. And, I was being treated with 70-year-old ladies, feeble old ladies, lovely old lasses, who put up with it really well and never complained.
See, that's what I mean. We're talking about that almost generation side of things just totally gone. Yeah. When you accept again, like we know people, I know personally people who've come off a bike once, when they've just rode it in a hedge going, I'm never doing that again. They've just accepted defeat.
Yeah, but everybody's different. Of course, and that's fair enough for them.
Of course it is, yeah.
That's fair enough. And then, it was a weird thing. But boredom for me when I was inside was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And I remember speaking to you at it was Knock Hill in 2018. I think it was actually during you were either going in for chemo or you just had it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember just being so impressed with your attitude at the time. And it was so like matter of fact and I just wonder, did the whole scenario and all the shit that you've been through with it, has it changed your outlook on life?
It changes you a bit. I mean, everybody says it changes you, and the little things become more important to you in that you appreciate the simpler things that you had taken for granted for years, if you like.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, but like my biggest point is that you're such a big icon within just the sport, first of all, and your mindset for just illness in general, not just specifically cancer. It's just the
but that's the thing, innit? You can't.
That's in my opinion. I think looking up to you there, it's just.
But you don't choose
mindset.
it. You don't choose it. It's not like the people I reckon you've got to admire is the people who, if you've got to put up with something, you put up with it. That's it. You don't get a choice. It's the people, for me, the bravery thing, because I've always wondered what makes a really brave person, right? Because the racing bike thing, I thought I'd stick my neck out a bit. I thought,
that's a different kind of brave. We want to do it.
If somebody picked a fight with me, I'd be the first one flipping on his toes. You know what I mean? I'm not. I would have said I was a brave person. However, you look at people. To me, bravery is not. If you've got to put up with it. If they said to me, "You've got to go back inside because the cancer's back," and this is, what are you going to do? Say no.
Wait,
you can't say no.
No, you can't.
So bravery don't come into it. There's no choice.
Yeah.
It's the people who choose to put their self, who didn't have to. They're the ones that really you've got to think, well, the brave people. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's fair. That's
soldiers or somebody. Imagine a fireman having to run into a building to help somebody. You'd be everything inside. You'd be going, no, I am going to get burned in there. Do you know what I mean? And that's a conscious decision. Where mine haven't been decisions. Mine have been, here we go, no choice. So it's a weird thing, isn't it? It's strange.
No, thank you for that. That was bloody hell. Thank you.
Going on to
Deep.
It is. I know. Yeah.
going.
So do you think Hickman's a Bill End? You know, that's what I'm straight to the subject.
We'll go on to onto your racing career, and when was the first time that you started actually racing bikes?
16. Really simple story. My dad had I've been on bikes since I was 4 or 5 up here, just flying about on anything we could get his hands on. And then my dad's best mate, a guy called Clifford Leach, who lives just over the hill here, near, he's this side of Halifax, and we're Halifax side of Huddersfield kind of thing. He had a lad who is 3 years older than me, like called Dave Leach, who went on to become a multiple TT winner, cracking rider. Well, he started racing club races at about 17 on a 250 LC. And because I was interested in bikes anyway, and I'd been to watch a bit with my dad, I'd go to help Dave. I was just that 14, 15-year-old kid who they'd send for, go get us a bag of chips, or clean this, or fetch that, or mix that, or do that. And I was a kind of skivvying for them and really enjoying it. So we got a place like Carnaby, Elvington, Cadwell, Mallory, all them sort of places, Croft. And then when I got to 16, I realised there were people at Paddock who were probably that age. And you could only start when you were 16 then. There was no real youth racing. You had to be 16.
All right.
And I said to my dad, I'd like to go racing. And we came up with a bit of a plan. And he spent 600 quid on a 125 Honda MT, a little proper race bike, but quite a basic one. And strangely enough, my dad had never taken me racing. He said, I go with Dave, and he'd drop me off at Dave's. I'd chuck it in his van. And my first season was wherever Dave were racing. That's where I raced.
Tagged along, yeah.
And then how long was it before you started getting involved with Mick Grant and things started getting a bit more serious?
So raced my Honda 83, 84. Got a thing called an MBA, which were the winning 125 at the time, a twin, an Italian twin, brilliant thing. We got one of them at the end of 84, raced at 85 in British Championship, 86 internationally, European Championship, few Grand Prix. And then at the end of 86, I realised you were never, 125s, if I wanted to make a living out of it, you weren't going to do it on 125s in this country. Big bike mentality in this country.
Here's a question. Obviously, we're talking about when you first started club racing. At what point did that enter your mind? I want to make a living out of this. So you started 16. Was it like 16 and a half or 20 or what?
By the end of my second season, I knew I had some aptitude for it.
Yes.
But it was different then. I got into racing because I wanted to be a bike racer. I quite fancied it. I thought it might be a bit more attractive to girls, and I want to be involved. I saw it as a real exciting thing, and you know, the guys I looked up to were bike racers. It was a thing. It was a proper nice. And I still think that. I still admire bike racers. Yeah. And so I wanted to get involved for that. At no point before I started racing did I think anything other than if I can finish, if I can get my name in MCN at the back where it says, finish third at Cadwell Club Race, that'll do me. So at no point, it's different now. Kids are saying, I know I've got the talent. I mean, it's like the X Factor generation, isn't it?
We call it Rossi syndrome. Every kid who gets an Ovale or something like from Peter Hickman suddenly becomes, they're walking around looking like this pillock here. Yeah. With sunglasses, hair gel on, you know what I mean? Walking around tiny
and there were
shorts.
never any of that.
Exactly.
So it all happened a little bit at a time for me. I thought, by the end of my first season, I thought, because I'd finished at Rostrum with an office jacket on. I thought, I'm all right at this. I'm all right at this. And then you get a bit better, and then you think a bit more, and then you get a bit better. And it was all steps. It was never, And
was it 1985, the first year you did the Manx on the Kawasaki 250?
I did Manx. I was racing 125s at the time, but by then I'd got involved and knew a lot. You gravitate towards. I'd go to race meetings with Dave Leach, but then you'd look at a program, and what them old club programs are like. It's a James Whitham 125 Honda Huddersfield. Or it might say engineer, apprentice engineer, whatever. You give you a little bit of info. And there were 300 flipping people at the meeting racing in them days. But I'd look and I'd think, well, a few lads from Huddersfield here, and Halifax and Wakefield, and a few local lads. So then you sort of get to know local lads, and by then you've probably got a circle of 6 or 8 friends locally who either race or mechanic, and they all had different bikes. They were racing LCs. I was only one of them on 125, but 350 LC, 250 LCs, 250 open class, 350G, Yamaha, TZs. So I had a good circle of friends, and they were going to go and do the Manx. A few of them were going to do the newcomers race at Manx. And I thought, that'd do me. So entered the Manx, but I didn't have a bike. So it was on a local bike shop. I borrowed a bike off them to go do Manx because I didn't have a 250.
And what was your first experience at the TT like?
I'd been to watch TT a lot of times from late 70s with my dad. So loved it. You can't not like the TT, can you?
So when you first went there, obviously, when you hear the interviews with John McGuinness and everyone, and if the first time they ever clap their eyes on it, and they just say, I want to do this, was that very much sat at bottom of Bray Hill? Did you just went, I want to have a go at this? This might be the first honest answer we'll ever get of any interview. This is brilliant.
No, I don't think I did.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Again, it was a kind of step-by-step thing. I was at the end. My generation of first 3 or 4 years of racing were at the end of the. If you were from the north, right? Maybe not if you were from the south of England, but the northerners. If you got good at club racing at Cadwell and Carnaby and Mallory, you'd do the Manx. Manx was a step. It was a natural step. It wasn't, am I going to do the roads? Ooh, oh no. It was a step.
Different.
There wasn't. You did it. That's what you did.
It is interesting because I tell you what, the most successful people have come out of bleeding Yorkshire.
Yeah, it's a northern thing, isn't it? It's a northern thing.
It's mad, that, isn't it?
And if you then the other natural step was if you did well at the Manx, the natural step then was TT. There was no choice. Mm-hmm. The choice was made. The choice was you did all right at the Manx, then you did the TT. That was it. And it was the generation after mine was the one that then started deciding it. There seemed to be a sort of change then. Mm-hmm. But before me, everybody dumped Manx. Rob Mack, Phil Mellor, there were loads of local lads that dumped Manx and then TTs.
And what sort of lap times was it back then?
First time I went, I did 98 mile an hour average on a 250 Kawasaki that probably wouldn't even do 120 mile an hour. So
fair play, man.
It was all right.
That's fair play, isn't it?
The 2 quickest newcomers that year were me and Foggy. But I fell off and broke my collarbone on Thursday afternoon. So I didn't take any further part after.
And which track was this at your crash?
Alaman.
Wow.
Fell off at Manx. First year there.
Whereabouts?
Bungalow.
Ooh, that's fast. That's fast.
Not the way I were going around it.
Well, it's got a little bit of runoff, but you're going to hit your arse off a curb.
There was a sort of gravel turning area that's still there. I ended up in the middle of that, upside down.
Bloody hell.
Then did 86, 87, 88 and 89 TTs then. But by the time I'd done
What age were you at this point? Sorry, so you started 16.
I started racing at 16, did my first Manx at 18.
That was a very quick progression. So that's interesting because the thing is, right, ever since this podcast got going, I'm learning more and more about the detail around the history of racing. Now, I love these conversations because I learn so much. Now, you were a road racer before you became famous, shall we say?
Yeah, I wanted to do a road, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's class.
I had a mate called Pete Moore, who I'm still matey with. Pete's in his 60s now. He was just about coming to the end of a club racing career as I was starting mine.
Yeah.
So he became my sort of early mentor. He'd look after my bike a little bit. He'd advise me on running it. Then we'd get to a meeting. He'd do 2 350 open races and wouldn't be bothered doing the last one. I said, "Do you want to ride my bike?" Then I'd go change his entry to my name and I'd get on his 350 and all that. And it was instrumental in me doing all right at racing because he kept me going the right way and he knew the job. But he says to me, we started talking about Manx and he goes, put it this way, it's like, because at the time we all had road bikes. We all flew about on road bikes. We were the generation that we passed his motorbike test 2 days after we were 17, went to his local bike shop and said, look, I've got this money, I want to go as fast as I can. That's what we did. Money just meant speed for us. What's the fastest bike I can afford with that? Well, we got that. Right, I'll have that. So we all had road bikes and we all mucked about on road bikes. And so Pete said to me, he says, Manx is easy to get your head around. He goes, imagine somebody closing 40 mile of road, from your house to Doncaster and saying, there's nobody coming the other way and you can go as fast as you want. Would you like that? And I went,
Yeah.
bloody right, I would. He goes, that's it. That's what you do. That's all it is. If somebody's closed a load of road off for you and everybody's going the same way around.
It's brilliant.
So that's sort of how we looked at it.
And was obviously you were there very tragic in '89. Obviously, your teammate Phil Mellor and Steve Henshaw both lost their lives in the same race. Do you think that sort of brought a early retirement to road racing for you?
Yeah, I think that a couple of things. I think I went to the Isle of Man really early in a career when I hadn't really learned how to ride a bike properly and safely at that point. I was still taking massive risks and thought I were invincible. And the 89 TT was the one where I thought, I looked at it very personally. There was no way I was going to walk away and say, this job's dangerous, it should be banned. I walked away and went, if I keep doing what I'm doing there, because I fell off that year as well and got away with it at Quarry Bends, clipped a curb and went down the road at like 120 mile an hour.
Jeez.
And I remember thinking, if you keep doing the road racing, you are gonna you're gonna get killed. Mm-hmm. So it was a very personal thing for me.
Yeah.
I never at any point thought anybody else should stop. I always thought it was a personal thing.
Here's a quick question for you then. Do you think, obviously, you have 18's the age limit for the TT?
Yeah.
Do you think that should be changed, in your opinion?
No, I mean,
No.
It's really irrelevant why I think now. If you would have asked me at 16, do you want to have a go around the Isle of Man? I'd have gone, yep.
Oh, no. I just mean in general.
With a bit of experience.
Yeah.
I think 18 is young. I think that...
Because we had James Hillier on, and I don't think he said it in exact words, but he was very open about the fact that it is a bit young to be going to the TT.
He thought the minimum age should be lifted. Just
possibly, yeah. I mean, it's not my decision, but that is young to go and do the TT. And you can get an 18-year-old that is so mature that he will know how to manage risk and accept risk if he wishes to do that, and understand what's involved in doing that. Whereas you get some 17, 18-year-olds that wouldn't,
Yeah. It definitely depends on your class as a rider, because you think like Josh Daly went early, even Joey Thompson went early. I'm trying to think, there's James Hine at the Manx Grand Prix.
Yeah.
It's a different class. These lads have got a strong pedigree. And it was very much different, what you just explained.
Going even further on that argument, I look at the classes. There's I've seen 125 riders. 125 open class bike has about, towards the end of the two-stroke era, they'd have mid-50s horsepower and they weighed 70 kilos. These bikes would do 130 mile an hour.
Aye.
And there's 12 and 13-year-old kids on them. And I was thinking, we've seen it. I mean, we've and I just think, do you at 13 years old, do you have the mental capacity to understand that you can make a mistake and you will be killed? That's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In essence, do you know what you're getting into? Mm-hmm. Right? It's different playing tennis. You might get a flipping ball in the ear and flipping. But this job, even on bikes like that, is potentially very, very dangerous. And it's all right, a dad's stood at the side of a field watching the kid going around, the motocross dad things, urging his kid on. Because I've known a lot of motocross kids whose dad wanted them to do it. In actual fact,
they didn't want to.
When they got to 20-year-old and they've left home, they went, I fucking hated it. Mm-hmm. It was shit. My dad used to kick my ass and hit me, and I never did good enough for him. And, and you don't want that in road racing.
Yeah.
Because I ain't going to break your collarbone. That's going to flipping squash you if you get it wrong at road racing, honestly. So maybe, I don't know.
No, it's just...
these are...
There we go.
And obviously, you mentioned then going off to do European Championships.
Yeah.
Is that like sort of what we would class World Superbikes as now?
No, I did... from the middle of early 86 onwards, I was doing European Championships on a 125, because that's the only... The choice was then, you go international racing on your 125... where there were a lot stronger small bike racing, or you get on a big bike. Because by then, four strokes were just about taking over. Production bikes, super stock bikes, GSXRs, FZ750 Yamahas, and So 4-strokes were coming.
If you could change anything, what do you want to keep? 2-strokes or 4-stroke? If you had to pick one bike left in the whole
I'm a
world,
2-stroke man.
2-stroke man.
I don't know if you've been following the news recently, but the MotoGP are actually discussing whether they might be bringing back 2-strokes.
Sure,
Yeah.
man.
2026.
No, yeah, it's true.
'Cause
Well,
they've developed it's to do with hydrogen.
Formula 1 cars are going to be 2-stroke, but
it's more efficient.
yeah, but.
All right.
And I was discussing this exactly with a load of my 2-stroke buddies, right, the other day, and they're going, 2-strokes are back, we know they would be. They're not going to be back the way we knew them.
Not Castro.
The only reason Formula 1 will, and I don't know the details, the only reason Formula 1 will be going 2-stroke is because whatever 2-stroke they are going to run is more efficient, more ozone friendly, more planet friendly. Right? It's a political thing. It's not somebody at the FIA sat down and gone, I know what we'd like. Noisy, smelly, smoky motorbike engines. Let's run them. Because if it were them, I'd be all in favour of it.
I know it's funny how the whole 2-stroke thing got phased out purely on the basis of it being, these sort of like anti-global warming, bad for the environment.
Yeah.
And then there was massive bursaries for diesel engines, and it was like, oh, you need to go diesel to save the environment.
Now
and then
diesel killing it.
But it
isn't. That's the whole thing. It isn't. It isn't. Diesel isn't.
Switching in it like
correct. And I tell you what gets me, the electric car thing, right? I'm not a Luddite. I understand that there is a consequence to what we are doing and how we're transporting ourselves around and what we're eating. I get that. I hate the idea that the seas are filling with plastic bottles. I hate the idea that people will dump stuff out the window just down here on a local personal level. I hate that.
Yeah, it's wasteful, isn't it?
It's wasteful and it's bad. Well, I mean, so I get all that, and I'll do my level best to pull my weight in that area as I can.
Aye.
However, the electric car thing, am I wrong in thinking that the electric has to be produced somewhere, and still in this country more than half is produced by burning fossil fuels? So basically, you're not burning it outside your house, you're just burning it somewhere else to put in your car through a wire.
There we are.
But even more, and I'm a practical man, I don't look at the big overall pictures. What I do look at is the practical things. And I don't know whether anybody has ever, and I know I'm going to get shouted at for this because there'll be cleverer people than me saying that there's a system already being developed and blah, blah, blah. But if you're living on the 14th floor of a block of flats, or you live in an apartment building with no garage underneath, where are you going to plug your car into? Well, you know, I'm home, love, just chuck the wire out. It'd be like, what?
There'll be more trip hazards.
Cabling everywhere.
There'll be more claims. There'll be more claims.
The kids flipping, chopping wires and getting electrocuted because trying to weigh the copper in. That's just a practical basis. Yeah. And I know people are going to say, yes, but you're stupid and we're going to have it in every street lamp. And they can't even afford to flip and fix the gas mains here. Never mind put electric to charge your bloody car in every street lamp. Maybe that's going to work in London, but I don't know.
Who cares about London?
It's a practical thing. I think the answer, unfortunately, to it, if transport is the problem, is public transport. Get some good public transport, and then you don't need a personal transporting vehicle. But I mean, I'm not.
There we are.
Yeah. Not
so. All right, let's jump on another quick fire question. What did you make of the TT0 when it was running? Right,
TT0. The first year and first couple of years were exactly. Although there were a lot of things in there that was almost laughable. It was home-built, backyard, weird-looking specials, right?
That's part of the character of the TT.
Correct. And there was, I think, about 70-odd entries the first time I saw it. Everything from a home-built thing with a carbon frame that had been, fashioned by some kind of flipping mad scientist, to a R6 chassis with a flipping big motor and a wagon battery, right? And I love that. Everybody having a go, a few failing, and a few, but then what happened is 2 or 3, and the 2 most notable are Motor Chish, that American thing that were brilliant, and the Mugen got so good and so expensive that all these little people and schools and
the universities,
and these, they even had big company kind of apprentice schemes where they were building a bike to put in. They can't compete, so why are they going to compete?
Yeah, everyone goes there to win, even if you've got a little wallet or a big wallet. You know, that it's the mentality of going racing.
So you couldn't, if they couldn't compete, they didn't compete.
Yeah.
So eventually it ended up being 3 really good bikes in a race. It's
in a 1-lap race.
pointless.
I think that's. I mean, when looking at the TT schedule, and especially with the weather being dodgy over the last few years, you think to run that 1 lap for the TT, it's maybe like an hour and a half in the. Sometimes it's very, very short space of time with the weather constraints, and for the fans on the side of the road, they're literally watching like 3 silent bikes go past, and then
Looking at the phone
just
and
waiting
boom.
around for maybe an hour. And it's about no, for putting a show on for the fans. I think they've sort of had to pull it for that reason. Maybe.
No, obviously.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, if there'd still be 60 people in the race, fine, keep it running. But 3 bikes.
No, it's not good. So what would you... Okay, it's all about development, isn't it? Every sport's about pushing, keeping things fresh. In your opinion, what would the TT... What could the TT replace that with? And what would you want to see racing around the TT again?
Do you want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
TT don't need anything.
Fair enough.
TT is just... The TT has got that much going for it as a spectator event
Yeah.
that it doesn't need anything. All it needs is fast motorbikes going around roads they shouldn't really be going around if we're honest, but because it's been going for 100 and odd years, it's still allowed, and long may it continue. It's such a different, oddball, unique event that they'll never... Can you imagine if the TT on the Northwest and the Ulster had never, and the road racing in other countries as well, had never happened? And then, there'd never been any road racing, right? Ever. And you came up with the idea now, and you went to your local government and says, I've got a great idea. Oh, what is it? Well, we're going to close off 40 mile of roads, right, which involves, we're going to barrier these off, and everybody's going to not go on the roads there, and then we're going to have to put bales. There's a little bit of infrastructure to get built up, and then we're going to have a race, and what we're going to do is we're going to set 60 blokes off down this hill on big fast motorbikes, and it's the first one back wins. They'd go, fuck off. And then you're probably locked up. But because it's been going on for that long, it's allowed and it's accepted, and it's a brilliant thing.
And looking ahead for TT 2020, obviously there's a few changes in teams and a few different manufacturers. Obviously Hickman is kind of the man to beat at the moment.
Absolutely.
Just went from the Triumph to the R6, which it has been looking the bike to be on in
Definitely in
that
that class, yeah.
Do you think we could see Hickman do five in a week this year?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, he's a big lad for the 600s, but he always gets on well with them.
Has he only won one? Or the Super Sport?
I think he's only won one Super Sport.
Yeah, on the Triumph, yeah.
Triumph, although the Yamaha's the bike to have short circuits without any question now, it's the newest bike.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're not making any other ones now, are they?
No, that's why. It's because nobody's. But the Triumph's always been a good tool ride, Isle of Man. A little bit torquey. But anyway, I think he's definitely got to be the man to beat in every single class, I think. And there's potential. Trouble is about the Isle of Man is, even in this day and age when bikes are a hell of a lot more reliable than what they were even 20 years ago. Yeah. You can't guarantee anything in Isle of Man. You can run out of fuel. You can.
Look what happened last year.
Exactly.
So, in your opinion, what's it gonna take to beat Hickman? Because Harrison's done a 34.9.
Yep.
He's 0.6 of a mile an hour behind now.
Yep.
The way, obviously, social media and the way magazines and newspapers, it's like Hickman is a different planet. Realistically, Harrison is on the clip of him.
It is definitely Hickman and Harrison are your two. And they are, I mean, they're head and shoulders above anybody else now, I think, in terms of what they're capable of around there. Yeah. The next level now.
And obviously with the news this week that McGuinness has joined the Quattroplan Kawasaki team, replacing, obviously, Hillier. Hillier has gone up to the BMW.
Yeah.
Do you think after, obviously all the injury that McGuinness has been through after the Honda fiasco, and then obviously having a time on the Norton, which wasn't really competitive, do you think that this could be the step that he needs to be competitive again?
I think it's even more basic than that. I think on a real personal level with John, I speak to John all the time. I'm a really good friend of John. I love John. He's
He's a cult hero.
He's what he is. He's annoying in a lot of ways. He's kind of lazy in some ways and really hard-working in other ways. He does exactly what he wants to do. He knows what... He's an odd man to be doing what he's doing, but that makes him all the better for me. Yeah. I really like John. I get on really well with him.
The whole world would go nuts if he won another one.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it?
With John, it's not even about getting his backside on the bike that he thinks is the most competitive. It's more about him. It's, at least at the end of this, the only unknown quantity going into the TT, the team's known. They've only had one breakdown in however many flipping starts, a lot of starts. It's run strong with Ilya. It's not like it's had a dolloper on it that hasn't even been revving it past flipping 8. So the team know what they're doing. The team know what they're doing with the fast rider. They know how to run a TT. They know how to run a bike, and the bike's capable. And I think with John, that's important because he needs to know where he is now. He's had that much time off and that much injury and that much messing about with the note and all that. This will be brilliant for John because really he can gauge himself after the TT this year, which he can't do now.
And look what he did at Macau. Bearing in mind, everyone he just wrote him off, didn't he? For the 2 years, everyone wrote him off. He turned up at Macau. And he was on the gallop like. Yeah. It was like someone knocked, like literally chiseled 20 years off him.
He loved that bike.
He was off.
And that's what he needs. John survives entirely on confidence. Entirely on confidence. And you would think a man of his age, with his experience and his success, would be completely the opposite.
They'd be able to just consistently bang out results.
They'd be able to rely on the fact that they knew they could do it. And he questions himself a lot. That's what makes him... He's very fallible, is John, and that makes him lovable, if you know what I mean. You can relate to that.
Yeah, relatable.
You know, it's...
And so from where we got up to with your career, did you get up to the big bikes in this country, then go to Europe, or...
Yeah, but I didn't even buy it because I knew Mick Grant from being about 13 or 14 because Mick used to come up here and use a runway you can't do any testing up here, but you can test a gearbox, you can test a bit of jetting, you can do a plug chop.
You practice stuff.
Yeah. So we knew Mick as a family. We'd been to watch Mick. You know, when we went to the Isle of Man, me and my dad went in 78, we already knew Mick because he'd been up here. So we were Mick Grant fans back then, and he only lives... We used to pass his house the whole time. His house is sort of 5 miles from here. Well, he lives in Lincolnshire now, but he did live in Huddersfield. And
small world, isn't it?
Yeah, really small. And he came to me in 86 and said he'd seen me doing some international stuff, and he'd been at the same meetings in the UK, some British Championship that I slotted in between. And he said, "Need a big bike." He said, "Honestly, if you're going to get any further in sport, need a big bike." And he said, "I'll get you one." And he went to Suzuki and kind of badgered them into just giving me a bike to shut me up, or to shut him up, really. And so I went racing a class called Superstock, which then was a big class. It's not like Superstock now. You could do a lot more tuning, a lot more mods to your bike in the Superstock class at the time.
Right.
Because they had a production class then that was almost like the stock classes now, if you understand.
Aye.
The production class was absolutely standard. Lights, horn, everything. The Superstock class was one jump ahead of that, almost what we'd call Superbike now. And then above that, there was F1, which was, mate, run what you brung. You could flip it, put anything. As long as you had, crankcases that was off the original bike, you could basically tune the God bejesus out of it. So the Superstock class I did was almost like what became Superbikes, really.
And then was it after that you moved up to the Durex Suzuki?
87 rode my own bike
Best
with help from
sponsor
Mick.
in motorcycle racing to
They
this day.
weren't that good.
Well, the Durex, you have got a kid.
No, I don't mean product. I mean the fact that they never put in what a sponsor never puts in what the name looks like they put in. They were a decent sponsor, but they never understood motorbike racing. They were of the time.
They have a safety product.
Well, it was at the time, it was a massive age thing. People thought that condoms were going to be as essential for, the planet continuing with human beings on it as air. And it just didn't turn out like that. But they were bullish. Oh, yeah, we're going to have tons of money. Yeah, condoms are going to be everywhere. That's what they thought. And it was a good sponsor in that people are still talking about it.
Yeah.
Once, at the end of 87, I'd had a reasonable year, won a couple of Superstock rounds, did my first big bike TT, and did all right at that. And then at the end of that year, Mick said, right, well, I'm going to run the Suzuki team. They're feeling it out, and I'm going to run it from my place at Lepton, just up here. I don't want you to ride. You and Mez are going to be the two riders. So then after that, I really never had I was factory stuff ever since, really. So.
And then, did you then make a step to World Supersport?
I did British Championship on Suzuki, then Honda, then Suzuki, then Yamaha, then went into World Superbike. I always, through most of that time, concentrating on British Championships, we'd do 1 or 2 rounds of World Superbike. I finished on the rostrum on a private bike in 93, on a fast orange bike, as a one-off, as a wild card. And then first full-on year in World Superbike was on a Ducati in 94.
And obviously, you're very involved with the World Superbikes nowadays, commentating. You get to quite a few of the rounds. Good friends with a lot of the lads that are racing. It's not a patch on what it was in the glory days in terms of the interest in whatever. What do you think's went wrong for World Superbikes?
That's a big question. I mean, probably for me, the bottom line is, if you have exciting racing most weekends,
you're going to watch it.
People will watch.
So do you think it's just literally the
I think the racing got a bit staid. I think grids got a little bit small. I think it got regulation. I think the World Superbike organisers, whether that be FG Sport or since then it's been Dorna, I think have not kept pace with where the regulation should be in terms of how affordable it is to do. A little bit of that is because the manufacturers have said, well, we're not getting involved. If there's no electronics, we're not getting involved because we use this as
development.
And I think what they should have done have gone, well, do you know what, lads? Fuck off.
Yeah.
These are the rules.
Yeah.
We're not having electronics.
Much more like BSB type.
Yeah. And I think they still would have been involved.
Yeah.
I think getting rid of Superstock, that was a massive, massive problem. Mistake.
Yeah. Because they could have developed it through that class.
They can develop electronics through MotoGP. That has everything.
Yeah. Oh, silly buggers.
I think they've got to make exciting racing, however they do that.
And I know the organisers have sort of tried different things. They had that grid thing where after the first race it switched. They've had that super pole race or whatever they're called. And like each time it's,
Bit gimmicky.
Yeah, a bit gimmicky. I've heard various suggestions of possible things they could try. One thing that I thought was a really good idea and something very out of the box was to differentiate World Superbikes from MotoGP and to increase the viewing numbers is to run it throughout the winter months. So it went in hot European
like southern
countries,
hemisphere,
but to get plenty, like change the season a little bit and have it through. And obviously, like if there was racing on this weekend, you would definitely be watching like.
Because you'd not have a lot of competition with other meetings.
Yeah,
and stuff.
what do you think of that?
That'd be mint. That. Put a word in. Go on, Whitham. Go on, put a word in.
I know it's nice for the whole racing world to have a little bit of a break, but
the world's polluted with Love Island at the moment. Bring back petrol engines.
Gas some of them competitors on there.
That's it, exactly. He's made a note here, Chris. I think you've hit the nail on the head.
The traditional idea, and in recent years, it was always formed around the fact that bikes don't change much now. You get a model change because they're not selling as many road bikes, especially in Europe, especially sports bikes.
But they're changing internals, aren't they? Like the R1's done that, the Kawasaki's done that.
They don't change them much. They've reached a sort of plateau in what is possible and what is developable and how far you're going to get, Right. Whereas with, 20 years ago, a new bike came out every single year from somebody, and so it was almost, we're waiting for his new bikes coming in January, then we got, it was a seasonal thing, even for bikes coming out. Whereas now, doesn't seem so. So you could probably get away with racing in Southern Hemisphere in maybe. I mean, we start into February, so it's almost a.
But then you have a big gap.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Like what? It's a huge gap, isn't it?
4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, something
in
like
the
that.
middle.
In racing terms, it's
And,
big, isn't it?
and speaking of sort of series that have been amazing and then they've dropped down, what's going on over in America with what was AMA, Moto America? Do you follow the racing over there much? Or?
A little bit.
I mean, at one point, there was loads and loads of top American lads. It was like similar to like what Spain is now.
Yeah.
And then now they're struggling to get anyone in the MotoGP. I know they've got like one or two knocking about, but
We're getting an American in World Superbike this year. I think we need it. I don't know what's gone wrong there. They used to have a really buoyant championship. I got offered a load of money to go race there right there towards the end of my career.
Neil Hodges, a few people have went over
Neil
there.
went and did it. There's been other
Ellison.
people.
Ellison carved himself.
Ellison,
That, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, didn't who is it as well? Didn't Chaz Davis? Chaz Davis did a lot of racing out there. Yeah,
I would look. I tell you what, I started emailing a few people, and like we were briefly touching on this about the politics and the sport and everything. And I'm only over the last couple of years discovering actually how much it costs to go racing. And I was emailing a couple of people, and they wanted 80 to 100 grand. I would go out to America in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? There's trees all over the world. I can get work anywhere. And I would go out and race there because you theoretically could make a name. I think someone like you, Chrissy, to put it blunt, I think you could turn up and mob it.
I think it's,
Like,
it's
you know
very
what I mean?
It's very competitive over there still, isn't it?
I think at the front
top-
it is, yeah.
at
I think at the front
there's,
it is, yeah.
Who's the lad that's gone into World Superbikes?
Do you know what?
I forgot.
I should know this.
It's even that I can't tell you.
Speaking of World Superbikes, obviously our reigning British Superbike champion Scott Redden's going over.
Yep.
Top team, top bike,
Yep.
whatever. Knows the circuits or most of them. Do you think he could win it? Do you think he can take the fight?
I think he's going to be somewhere near the front. I think he'll win rounds. I think the problem is when you look at what Jonathan Ray's been able to do. Not only has he been the quickest person at most race meetings, but he's been the one that's got the best out of every possible myriad of circumstances. He's the one that if it's wet weather, he seems to be able to get the best out of that. If there's an hold up, he gets the best out of that. If there's
he's a robot. The man's a robot.
And when he hasn't got the pace to win, he's always settled in for seconds.
And that's why over a season
He wins.
Over a season it's difficult to beat. But there's somebody will beat him at some point.
What do you think it would take for him to move? If you know what I mean, because he did the MotoGP, didn't he?
He did 2 or 3 meetings, didn't he?
Yeah, standing for Casey, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was. Yeah.
It's a bit like
And did really well.
See, you're like your situation at the moment, MSS. Would you want to go in the Worlds? But even now, obviously you're thinking about superbikes. It's about getting on the right bike. Because I think Johnny Ray could go get a MotoGP ride again, no bother. But it wouldn't be necessarily.
I think at his stage in his career, would he want it? No, he's earning good money.
Right.
He knows what he's doing. He's got a team that are
The man's a winner, yeah.
the most efficient in World Superbike.
Do you, like, say, go back 5-6 years if he'd made a move to MotoGP, similar time to Cal Crutchlow?
Yeah.
Do you who, in your honest opinion, who's the best rider between them two? Would Johnny Ray have achieved more in MotoGP given Cal's rides and experience?
Funny thing, isn't it? It's a
friends
difficult
with the
question,
both of
and you're always going to upset somebody with your answer. But my opinion would be ultimate speed, Cal. Over a season, consistency,
Johnny Ray.
JR.
So yeah, pretty close, but fair enough. And looking ahead to BSB this year, obviously, are you still doing the same role with Eurosport?
Yep.
Yeah, excellent. Who's your pick for the title?
It's a really difficult choice because of what he's on and because it's his second year on it. If I had to put money on it, and I don't like putting money on it, they're all my mates, they're all good lads. Great championship is BSB. It's quite a lot changed. We've lost a couple of sponsors, got a couple of new ones in. Brooks. He's got a start favourite, I think. And I think he will for most people. I don't think I'm saying anything.
Oh, no, not at all.
We had Christian in on the podcast last week. Obviously, massive move for him, a dream opportunity. And obviously him and Tommy. Last year, the Ducatis dominated the championship. If you look at all the stats and like
And I
the
don't think that's going to change.
race wins, podiums, whatever. And we've also got Gino Ray coming. He's on the I think Dave Tyson's running him on a Ducati as well.
Yeah.
So we'll have a few Ducatis, and hopefully we'll see Christian up the top. We've got Bradley Ray going over to the Tyco.
Yeah, Brad and the Tyco thing, but it ain't even Tyco now. It's back to Taz because there's no Tyco sponsorship. Wish Brad all the best. Has he got the talent? Absolutely. But I do feel he needed a change. I think that he needs to find out where he is. I mean, he needs to be able to do what he knows he can do, but he needs to be able to do it every weekend. Not, we know how quick he is. There's no, he's got the talent. There's no question. Christian, I'm a massive Christian Eden fan, and I believe that Christian would be quick on pretty much anything. You would never ever bet against Christian pulling someone out of the bag at any meeting, at any circuit, on any bike. But
He's
again,
like the wild card in this event.
but he knows, and I've told him to his face, because I see a little bit of Christian, especially during summer, because he instructs for us a little bit, and he don't live too far away. And I've said, mate, if you're gonna do it, it's gonna be this year, because you ain't gonna do it if you don't do it this year. He knows it.
He's a proper bloke, Christian, and he like down to earth, like
Lovely lad.
Yeah, like,
and he gives himself an hard time,
old-fashioned,
He almost overtrains. He there's nobody puts more into it
Than him.
Absolutely, 100%. He's a strong lad.
Our last episode on the podcast was actually called Frozen Testicles, and it was named after when Christian first started courting up in the northeast. Like some wind.
Is that what we're calling it up there?
His girlfriend's up there, isn't she?
Yeah. During the winter, he cycled up, so it was 250 kilometres, like over all the the Midlands, and he got up into the moors, and it was like freezing cold.
And bearing in mind, the beast from the east.
Yeah,
he was dated during that.
Time.
Yeah. So he was talking about that. Man, had a good laugh.
I don't think I've ever known anybody in any walk of life as fit as him. Honestly, he comes and does track days instruction for us, and he will get up. It's the typical days. Bear in mind it's summer, so it's light at 5 o'clock, whatever. He's up at 5:30. You see him, or you hear him. You hear his motorhome door click shut, and off he goes on his bicycle. He'll do 40 miles. He'll be back, get his levers on, do a full day instructing for us, and then he'll go off and do 40 or 50 miles at night. He is
sounds just like Dom.
Oh, shut up, man. Cutting trees, not peddling.
Yeah, that
Strong
is
lad.
mega impressive. Well, I've got through all of the sort of topics that I kind of wanted to discuss with you. So I've written down a few sort of quick fire, like yes or no, just quick answers. So first one, in your opinion, who greatest of all time?
Hillwood.
And you do the next one.
Hillwood. There we are. Your toughest rival through your career? Someone that you thought, oh, shite, he's here. Foggy.
Yeah.
You
Both on and off the bike.
If you could have one bike sort of mounted on your mantelpiece, any bike in the world, which one would you pick?
I would pick towards the end of the V4 era, pick any year you want, Honda. V4, 500, two-stroke, Honda. Mick Doohan's bike, basically. Big bang all screamer, not bothered.
Yeah, right, I don't think this is even on the list, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Who's your favourite co-presenter? Your favourite?
If you could be Jack, innit?
Jack, there we are, the living legend himself.
So, throughout your whole racing career, who was your best teammate? Like, favourite teammate?
I had some mega teammates. Can't really... I would say the two that really spring to mind are Rob Mack in 93 and Mackenzie in 96.
On the other side of that question, who was your worst teammate? So when you thought, oh, just get away from me, will you?
I didn't have any I want friends with.
Okay, not friends, but who got on your wick the most that you just thought, just go away? Must be a canny list. He's thinking about it. Fair enough, son. Fair enough.
Yeah, I made a massive effort to get on with him. I mean, even I had a teammate with a guy who spoke very little English called Paolo Cazzoli, ex-125 world champ, and I was teammates with him for a couple of years in World Supersport for Belgada. And although we didn't converse that much, but what a nice bloke. And even now I'll get the odd really sweet little WhatsApp message off him, a little picture, and how's your kids doing? I I didn't not get on with any of them because
Yeah.
I made an effort to get on with them.
Yeah,
I know
good man.
that a lot of riders like Foggy and like other riders, fair play to them, their way of doing it was to make something that make yourself not get on with them.
Mm-hmm.
That was their whole thing. Mine was, you know what, we're all right. I quite enjoyed my racing. Maybe I should have been harder.
Yeah.
And hated them all. Bastards.
This might be a tricky one for you. What's your biggest regret in racing?
Don't like having regrets.
If you could have your time again in one particular moment,
If I could only change one thing, towards the end of '88, a guy called Gary Taylor, were running the MotoGP squad, or 500 GPs as it was for Suzuki. I was racing Suzuki's in the UK, and around about end of '88, at the beginning of '89, I was offered a one-off ride on a 500 teammates to Schwantz, and me and Mick Grant sat down, discussed it. And at the time, our mindset was, look, a one-off ride is never going to work. These things are bastards to ride. You're going to hurt yourself. Let's wait until the end of this season. By then, you will be in a good place to say, look, I want a full season on it. And we said, right, no, we're not going to do it. And it never happened because I broke my leg at the end of that season, and it just didn't happen again. And looking back, I should have thought, do you know what? Might never happen again. I'm doing it.
yeah.
And that's the only thing, really.
Yeah.
And even that, I don't look back and I'm not. I never.
You're not dwelling on it. No. It is what it is. No, but
I
that's
mean,
good.
people look back on a career of any sport and they'll go, or any career, and say, oh, I should have done that, and I were better than him. I were better than him, and he made a lot of money.
Aye.
I sit back and I think, I did all right.
Everyone else at home thinking, I wish
did
I did
a lot
what
better
Whitham
than I
did.
thought I would when I started, anyway.
Yeah,
So,
there you are. Bloody hell.
Go on. Oh, well, hardest team boss you ever raced for?
He gets along with everyone, but in your opinion...
Mick Grant.
Mick Grant, right.
but that made him one of the best as well. Hard little fella.
Driving you.
Hard little fella, and didn't like excuses, and hard little fella, but good.
There we are. Right, you're sitting up there with Jack. You're commentating on a race. What was your most outstanding moment that you've commentated on? You thought, this is the best race I've ever witnessed.
Without any question, it was my first ever commentary job, and I'd raced in the Supersport race, and it was the second Superbike race that day. It was Imola. It was 2002. It was Edwards and Bayliss going for the World Superbike Championship. It was the last round of the year. It was going to go to one of them. Bayliss had to get Zaus involved because he couldn't afford. If Bayliss could have probably gone and won it, but he needed Zaus to be second and Edwards to be third for Edwards not to win it. And it was the race that unfolded. Jack was then sat in with Neil McKenzie, and they'd asked me, look, if you feel fit after your Supersport race, come and be a third voice. You get on with Neil. You've been his teammate before. You get on with me. And we're having a bit of banter anyway, and the race that unfolded was just spectacular.
Will we find that on YouTube? We must do. Everything's on YouTube.
It's the recognised best Superbike race ever. We're
putting
the
that on the
psychology
page.
involved. Bayliss got to the front and looked like he could easily win it, but he couldn't afford it, so he had to keep holding Edwards up to let Zaus catch up, and it would just, you knew what was going on, and you just didn't know how it was going to end up. And the funny thing was, I'm putting my tuppence in and trying to be a commentator, not knowing really what we're doing. I'm basically having a laugh with Mackenzie, and about halfway through the most exciting race I've ever watched in my life, Mackenzie got up, took his headphones off, and said, "I've got a flight to catch. I'm off," and just fucked off.
Yeah.
And so Jack went. And I'm sat in. By then, I'm like, I am proper co-commentator then, yeah.
You're proper committed.
Because the race had been delayed a little bit, and he had to go and catch a flight.
Right.
So we didn't fall out. He just had to go. So
we've actually got Jack lined up to come on as a guest of the podcast, which I'm really looking forward to because he's such a nice bloke. And
So if you want to get any digs in, get them in now before
the duo between you and Jack in the commentary booth. You just both.
we've had some
but
mega
you sort of
moments. We've had some such
bounce
good
off
moments.
each
And
other so
we've had
well.
some really good moments when we've been out there, just some such funny things about him. Jack's Jack. Jack, you
He
can't.
actually told us a few stories about in the hire car, like getting lost off maps with you and just driving about. And
But Jack is of, in a lot of ways, he's of the past, but in a lot of ways, he's so savvy. He doesn't trust sat navs really, because I will take me I take a little mobile thing. We've all got it on his phone now anyway, but in the day before I had a phone that had a proper app on it, I took my little TomTom and I just throw it in my bag, and when we get there, plug it in, and we knew we were getting to circuit. But he'd say, why we don't need that? I can get a map, and he'd get a map, and on the plane he'd be drawing little lines and flipping, and it always worked. And it became a thing. So I enjoyed his route finding that, because typically I'd drive. He don't like driving abroad. He will.
Yeah.
But typically I'd drive, he'd navigate. And
Jack Pernicle the pirate.
brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. We were being flipping barnyards and chickens jumping out of his way and back streets, and he's going, "Oh, it's right, it's all right." And we always got there, and it got that much fun that I'd stopped taking me TomTom.
Oh,
just
that
couldn't be bothered.
sounds class.
We had some really good runs.
Is probably my favourite standout moment of yourself and Jack in the commentary booth was, I think it was back in Croft, and you were commentating along, and
I know the one.
And Victor Cox.
Cox. I love to see Cox bouncing around. And I went, and he's just said that on air, and I went, and he goes, and you've got a lazy button, and if you press it, it means he can hear you, but it don't go out to air. So
obviously.
I pressed my lazy, and I went, so you love to see Cox bouncing around. It was like that, and it shoved him sideways. He couldn't. It was so good, that. But he did another one. There was a guy, I don't know if you remember him, a bloke called Brian Clark, right? I think he's still in Paddock because I think he runs a bit of a team. But Clark, he used to be a really good 125 rider and a lovely lad. Quite older end then. He were up against a lot of... Well, 125 class were typically... Then, I loved the 125 class. It was the last two-stroke class. Typically then, it was a few older guys and a load of young lads. And like Luke Edger and James Lodge and all them kind of people coming through. But you got a few old stages in there as well, who could mix it with Kyle Ride and,
Rob
anyway.
Diver
Yeah, so Clarkie's going really well. And Clarkie, top 6, top 7, he's front runner. But he only has one eye. He lost one of his eyes as a kid.
Is he Irish, Brian Clark?
No, he's not Irish, is he?
The one-eyed Irishman sounds like a bad joke. It's about
But anyway,
that, yeah.
but he's such a nice lad. But he's quite an aggressive little rider. Typical sort of mild-mannered sort of assassin, There's plenty of in racing. That's why one of the reasons I like racing. You can be weird anyway. And he loved Clarkie, did Jack, and he's going on and on about him when this 125 race is going on. And he said, you'd be surprised you see him in the paddock, and he's so soft and mild-mannered and lovely, but when he gets his helmet on, and you look through that visor, he will give you a steely stare. And I went, he's only got one eye. And then he looked back and he went, with the good eye, that is. That cracked me up. Because people at home wouldn't have a clue anyway.
That's the
they
thing,
wouldn't know.
innit?
They'd be going,
What do you mean this good eye?
Yeah. But, yeah. Good.
Absolutely class, man.
Tell you what, last question to finish it off. So a current racer that's any class now rings you up and says, like, the missus has just kicked us out. I need to move in with you for a bit. If you could pick one current rider that you would like that to be to move in with you, who would you pick?
The thing is, right, you'd be going off what you think you know about them, and you know yourself, especially blokes. You go on holiday. First time you go on holiday with all your mates, who you love to bits, you don't get on with half of them when you're in a close sort of circumstance with them. You know what I mean? One of them will snore, one's flipping stinking, one's left the flipping butter knife in the jam. You know what I mean? You're like, fucking hell. So you don't know, do you? You're only going off what you think you know about them. So I don't know a lot of them that well. I would say, well, you want somebody who's clean and tidy, don't you? Mm-hmm. And music would piss me off. If they listen to that modern music, that'd piss me off. So I would go...
It'd have to be Sex Pistols or nothing.
I'd like a bit of 80s stuff, so who's a bit retro there? Who are the younger ones that are a bit retro? I would go...
Oh, he's narrowing this down. This is good.
I think... I'd go Kyle Ride, So I like Kyle. I think he's a good bloke, and I think he's a little bit malleable still. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Plus, he always has good-looking girls, and there'd be a few of them tripping about it.
I'm looking forward to seeing how Kyle gets on with Keith Farmer. Obviously, Bill.
I am,
Davis and
yeah,
stuff,
I
and
am.
that'll be all good.
Kyle's another one of the, and in actual fact, Kyle and Brad were real good mates coming through the mini moto days, and to me, they're almost equally talented. Kyle, I would say, is a little bit more fragile, needs things just going his way, but there's no doubt if he can get a team and a bike doing what he wants,
He's up there.
he'll be fast. He's never been slow when things have gone his way.
Yeah. Right, that's the BSB paddock. Quickly, in the roads paddock. Who would you pick?
What, to live with?
Yeah.
Do you know, I like John McGuinness best, but you know he's a slob.
I don't
Man, the
know.
house would be minging, wouldn't it? There'd be tractors all packed up.
Aye,
Mind
but
you, there's
there'd be-
anyway.
That's it, there'd be beer cans everywhere. It'd be a proper bachelor pal, I can imagine.
Oh, that's a hard one.
I think he's going to go back full circle
Dino.
with John. Dino, aye,
Baby
there we are.
Dino, I think.
You could talk about engines and all sorts too, lads, so there you go.
Yeah, that with Dino, that'd be the problem. It might just get a little bit yappy and
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah,
we
thank you
really
so much.
appreciate it.
No
and
problem,
you
boys.
Welcoming us in. Just a quick shout out. Big thanks to Ian Stanton and Kev Pinder for sending us some good questions through, along with our patrons. And we're actually on a bit of a podcast tour at the moment, so we've got a few good guests lined up.
Who we
and
got
we'll
coming
be
up?
So we've got later on this afternoon, we're doing a guy called Aidan Robinson, who is
He's literally made people walk again. I mean, a chiropractor, but he's like...
you'll know loads
Right.
of people that go
High
to
end.
see him
Right,
after
okay.
crashes.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
sort of fixes
that'd be a
people
good
up.
slan.
Yeah,
And
but
then,
just like a more of a technical side of it.
Planning on going down to see Phil Crow.
Phil Crow's.
Good lad. And,
Do you know he's buying a bike for Jenny this year?
Is
Well,
that
I've
who
seen
he's
on
going for?
Facebook.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
brilliant.
Phil Crow's brilliant.
And
He
all-
can ride a
I
motorbike.
tell you what I like about him is he's a big scary guy, but he just doesn't run his mouth.
It's lovely.
That's what I mean. I'm in the same paddock as him.
I mean, if there's a pub fight kicks off,
You
you want to
want-
be on his
you
side,
want-
not the other side.
And he defies physical
He
laws of speed.
I
doesn't he?
remember doing a track day that he booked on one of our track days, but we don't know everybody who booked on our track days back then. All I know is I was instructing this rather fast guy in the fast group of one of my track days, cladding on. We were pedalling around Cadwell, passing most people, and this thing came past me at the end of the bottom straight, going up into Coppice. And I thought, what the hell? It was a 25 stone comedy man going like stink. And it's at that point I thought, I've got to find this bloke. Got to find this man.
He used to ride it like a mini moto. Cause
You couldn't see the motorbike.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
why doesn't he? He doesn't do British.
It does a few wild cards and stuff, but
Yeah.
his main focus these days is the TT. But anyway, we've got him, and we're going. That's right next to where the Neve lads live.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see if they're free and pop in and do a
There you
quick
go,
interview
kids.
with them. And then I tell you what, I'll save the other interviews for a bit of a surprise because I don't want to give too much away. But we've got a few more lined
Brilliant.
up. For the
No,
next day, so-
I don't want to spoil the thing.
But,
If you
yeah.
get a chance, Roger Marshall, get a reg one. He's still in British Championship paddock.
Adam Marshall's there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there we are.
Roger Marshall is he's like basically if you knock somebody off, you go and see him.
Yeah, but he's also 12 times British champion in his day. Riding
we'll
big
get
old
him in
four
then.
strokes and early two strokes. Mega.
He'll have
And
like the full spectrum.
you'll get him going. And he will not pull any punches, honestly. He's flipping great.
Oh,
Anyway,
brilliant.
thanks, boys.
Thanks
Cheers.
so much.
Thank you
mate.
so
Thanks,
much.
boys.
Thank you very much.